Right, so if you are listening to this video and watching this video, chances are the internet has gone out at the school because of the power and the weather. Uh, Hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to have our class meeting at our regularly scheduled time, which is during your regular class time as if you are still in school. If not, you'll see another video like this. So as we go through Google Classroom, you may have noticed that I have uploaded some documents to the classroom, and those pertain to your Chapter 1 work. I will let you know that our lab safety exam is postponed until we return to school. We'll set aside 2 days for that when we first come back. The first day back, we'll have a review day for lab safety things, and then that following day after that, we'll have our lab safety exam. If you need any review for lab safety, you can look at the safety training material that is on Google Classroom. Otherwise, for right now, we are going to switch gears and start our first chapter. And you'll notice that I uploaded 3 different materials and then 1 assignment. The first material is what we're going to cover today, which is your introduction reading into the chapter. Tomorrow we'll be using the Chapter 1 presentation, which is a Prezi that like what we used last year. And then we have a Chapter 1, Section 1 reading, and then Section 1 reading questions. The difference between a material and an assignment can be seen 2 different ways. The first way is through the symbol. A material is a book with a bookmark, while an assignment is a clipboard with some writing on it. You can also see based on how it's labeled for the dates. If it's a material, it'll tell you when it was posted in comparison to an assignment, which gives you a due date. I've had some students, not necessarily in this class, that have been sharing materials with me. I don't need to see those materials. Those are just for you to use as reference. The only things that should be shared with me are the assignments. So if we click into the assignment, you should have a doc that's already uploaded. It says untitled document, but whenever you open it, it will have a label on it called Section 1. And each one of you has an individual Google Doc file that you'll be able to open and edit to answer those questions. And all these questions can be answered from the Section 1 reading. This is going to be due on Tuesday. I have returned some of the assignments back to you, especially those that I really like that you jumped on those assignments as soon as I posted them. However, some questions were missed, or you just didn't quite get that question answered the way I wanted it answered. So I did send it back to you with comments to make sure that you read the comments so that you can fix your answers, and then you'll be able to work on these. I would suggest that you wait until after tomorrow to do the Section 1 reading questions, because we are covering everything today and tomorrow for that Section 1. So you'll be able to work on that. We will have class tomorrow during the regular scheduled class time, and then next week we're going to switch gears, if we're still virtual, into our normal virtual schedule. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday would be our Google Class meets, where you should tune in virtually to participate in class. Monday we will not have class because it is Labor Day, but we will on Wednesday and Friday. Tuesday and Thursday, the meeting room will be open during its scheduled time for you to tune in and be able to pop in if you need me to ask questions or anything pertaining to assignments or chapter projects or anything you may have questions about for science itself. You're not obligated to stay during the entire meeting time. You just pop in, ask your question, and leave. That's perfectly fine. But Tuesday, Thursdays, those are for questions. That's for your own work time. But Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and a normal virtual week is when we have our Google Meets. And you should try to attend those classes so that you can ask questions and you can participate with your class. However, if you do miss a class or you're unable to attend because of internet or like today or the weather, you can go to the Cast and Science page, and there will be a link specifically just for your class for you to access for the recordings, and you'll be able to see those. So if I were to refresh this page, you would be able to see some of the videos that I have been uploading from today that uh, that are processing right now. So actually they're not showing up right now, but they would pop up here for me, and then each class will have an individual link for that. So you'd be able to tune into that meeting virtually later in the evening or whenever you have internet access. You can also watch the videos as a sort of review if you need to as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to be using the Chapter 1 introduction reading. So you're going to click on the material, and you can either just directly click here to open up that PDF file, or you can just view the material and go from there. What I do is I just click automatically on this. As we progress through Google Classroom, please let me know if a file will not open. Sometimes my Google Drive will lock files out, even if you're part of the Barber County email server. I'm not sure why it does that. I can't see when that happens, so please just let me know if you can't see a file. I'll just have to upload it differently and open up the link to uh, public view so that they can see that. So for our first chapter, we're looking at ecosystems and biomes. So for our introduction reading, it's going to introduce us into some questions and some of the important concepts that ecologists and environmental scientists ask themselves to help get your mind in gear towards the subject area. Then at the end of this introduction reading is your chapter projects, and we'll talk more about those when we get to them. Because we're not in a normal meeting, I will read this and then you can follow along. Normally we would take turns and go from there, but because of constraints, I'm just going to go ahead and read this and you can follow along. All the introduction readings start with Frontiers in Science. That way, once we go back to school and you have these printed, you'll be able to find these relatively easy. So what we're reading about today is ecosystems on fire. And the big idea is it may seem strange to set fire to a wilderness preserve, but fire brings health to some ecosystems. Fire and life. Intense heat, smoke, and the crackling of burning grasses, the crashing of flaming trees, all these characteristics of fire seem threatening. In recent years, forest fires have burned huge areas of forests and have endangered people and property nearby. But even though fire can be destructive, it can also be an agent of life. In fact, scientists are actively using fire to manage ecosystems, areas that contain specific groups of living and non-living things. Prairies, forests, and woodlands are examples of ecosystems. You may recall in the news over the past couple years, we have seen a larger increase in wildfire damage, especially the 2019-2020 year. We had in the headlines Australian wildfires, California wildfires. Last year we had the same thing, the California wildfires, where large amounts of land were being burned. And we start seeing this more and more about with how it's affecting humans and our property as well as the ecosystem. So when we're talking about these burns, these wildfires, we're not talking about the massive destructive ones. We're talking about smaller scale natural wildfires that help the ecosystem. So this fear of fire has led people to limit fires that are a natural part of some ecosystems. Preventing or putting out smaller fires in a forest ecosystem can mean trouble. Occasional small fires burn small amounts of material and cause only limited damage. However, without these smaller fires, burnable materials may build up and lead to an outbreak of a catastrophic fire, like those that we have seen in California and Australia that are brought about by drought and a lot of dry material. And what I want you to understand is this material is so dry from the drought that just the slightest little spark, even just the high enough temperature, can ignite this material and cause a wildfire. The species of living things in some ecosystems have adaptations that allow them to thrive on fire. In western forests in the United States, trees such as lodgepole pine and jack pine depend upon flames to release seeds from their cones. Cape lilies lying under the forest floor blossom almost immediately after a forest fire. On prairies, flowers such as the rare coastal gayfeather in Texas or the fringe prairie orchid in Illinois benefit from the prairie fires. So in this picture here, we have that fringe prairie orchid that we can find over in Illinois. They're very pretty, but they only show up after a fire. Observing patterns. Ecosystems include living things such as plants and animals and non-living things such as water and soil. Fires affect both the living and the non-living. The photographs above show a part of a woodland ecosystem. The photograph on the left shows a fire set deliberately by humans. The photograph on the right shows the same area 7 months later. So we have here, after a fire had went through a controlled burn, it looks a little rough, but look how nice it looks after just 7 months. Nice and green, the trees are growing back, everything looks pretty normal. Ashes left from fires add nutrients to the soil. Fire also opens space on the forest floor. Areas that were shaded by small trees, plants, and dead branches now receive light. Over time, wild hyacinth and other new plants grow around the oak, and new insects and animals move into the area. In tall grass prairie ecosystems, fire provides similar benefits. Fire burns away overgrown plants, enriches the soil, and clears the way for the growth of new plants. Bison prefer to graze on these new plants that appear after a fire. Although some of the benefits provided by ecosystems can't be measured, researchers are starting to measure the financial contributions of ecosystems. Ecosystems may help clean our water, balance gases in the atmosphere, and maintain temperature ranges. Researchers today are studying these benefits. In fact, a new frontier in ecology called ecosystem services is emerging. This new study is gaining the attention of both scientists and economists. Given our growing awareness of the importance of ecosystems, should humans deliberately set fire to areas in forests or prairies? The answer to this question requires an understanding of interactions among living and non-living parts of ecosystems. Forest and prairie fires can be dangerous, but poorly managed, they provide important benefits to society as well as to the natural world. So, with this research and with this understanding and uh, the generation of data and what we see with controlled fires versus the catastrophic wildfires, we start to also come across some unanswered questions. So, understanding the connections within ecosystems raises more questions. In the coming years, people need to analyze the costs and benefits of ecosystem restoration. So, we have three unanswered questions that we hope to be able to solve based on our discoveries and our research and other questions as well that build off of these unanswered questions. So, how will humans balance the need to feed the population with the cost of destroying ecosystems such as the prairie? How can scientists and wildlife managers protect people and property near forests while maintaining forest ecosystems? And how do ecosystems protect natural resources such as soil and water? So, hopefully, through our research and through our observations and things, we'll be able to eventually answer these questions. For this chapter, each chapter we're going to have unit projects, and for this unit, you have three different projects that you can choose from. Now, in a normal setting, when we're in school, you'll be able to either do this solo or with a group of up to 3 people. However, because we're virtual for some of this chapter, if not all of this chapter, you are going to need to do this solo, meaning no partners or groups. So you're going to want to pick the project that you know that you can do. Uh, please don't do all three of these. You're only going to get a grade for one. So our three projects that you get to do is you get to build an ecosystem or a conservation campaign or design a park. So what do you need to do for each one of these? For the build an ecosystem project, you'll need to use an aquarium or other container to build an ecosystem such as an aquarium, like a fish aquarium. In order to do this, there's two things that you need to do. You can set up your ecosystem, observe it daily, and record your observations. If able, to bring your ecosystem into your classroom or take photographs and make diagrams of it, and then you're going to want to present the record of your observations along with the visual displays. For For the second one, for the conservation campaign, you're going to find out how much water, paper, and energy are used in a month at your school. If we're virtual, you can focus on your family or your neighborhood. And you're going to want to describe a plan for conserving resources. And then you're going to want to present your plan. You might make posters, write announcements, perform a short skit. You guys can be as creative as you want with these projects. However, you need to also make sure that you meet the requirements of these. So I'm not going to dull your sparkle, so to speak. I'm going to let you be as creative as you want with these projects, but just remember, don't get too carried away to where you miss the required things for the project. And last but not least, the design a park project. You are part of a group that is planning a park near your school. Your group wants the park to include plants that lived in the area 25 years ago. So you're going to want to collect information from local museums, park districts, or botanical gardens, even online. And you can also visit websites sponsored by these organizations. And you're going to prepare a report and drawing of your park design. So you're going to pick one of these three, whichever one you think that you would be able to do the best for your grade, and you'll then be presenting this project either virtually through Google Classroom or in person in school. If you have any questions for these projects at any time, you're more than welcome to ask questions for those, especially during those Tuesday, Thursday sessions. This will be due at the end of the chapter. I want to really stress to not procrastinate and put this off, because it will build up on you, especially if you're wanting to build an ecosystem. You're going to need some time for that ecosystem to establish. You're not going to be able to do this in a day or two. You're going to need to at least have 2 weeks for that. For your conservation campaign, you're going to have to crunch some numbers. You have to come up with ideas, things like that. Design a park. You have a lot of research that needs done. So please don't procrastinate with that at all. Now, tomorrow we are going to cover your chapter Prezi. So in order to access that, you're going to want to click on Chapter 1 Presentation, click on the link itself, and it will open up the presentation. Now, I have locked this presentation to only show the section that we're on. So right now, it's only going to show you key concepts and there's section 1. And you'll be clicking through for this. And I will need to update that link. It seems to not be the right one, but you'll be clicking into the Prezi and you'll be clicking through just like we did last year, right? And then your chapter 1 reading, this has your first section. Do not worry about the experiment. We will be doing that when we're back in school. But you're going to go through and you need to read through the reading. The words in bold are your vocabulary words. You need to make sure that you write those down on your note cards so that you can study those, because we will have vocab quizzes. And at the end, after you get done reading, you have your section 1.1 review, and you'll be answering those questions in the assignment here. So hopefully I'll be able to see you tomorrow. If not, please stay safe. And I look forward to seeing you either in meetings or in person at school.